Welcome back, Coinology. In this story we begin our journey deep into the universe of the 2019 1-cent coin, a coin that at first glance seems ordinary, a tiny copper-plated piece of metal passing through millions of hands without a single thought, yet beneath its surface hides a tale of incredible rarity, breathtaking value, and an unexpected rise that shocked collectors around the world. The 2019 cent, a coin seen every day in pockets, shops, buses, drawers, and forgotten corners, suddenly emerged as the center of numismatic fascination when reports began circulating about a mysterious example valued not in hundreds, not in thousands, not even in millions, but soaring into the unimaginable territory of $672,000 million. A number so huge it feels like fiction yet becomes the fuel of desire for collectors searching for the extraordinary hidden in plain sight. The journey begins with the coin itself, created by the United States Mint during a year that on the surface appeared typical, another chapter in the long legacy of the Lincoln cent, yet that year carried subtle shifts, new minting conditions, new press calibrations, and a handful of rare striking anomalies that together became the origin of this unbelievable legend. The 2019 1-cent coin, weighing approximately 2.5 grams and composed primarily of zinc with a thin layer of copper plating giving it the warm reddish tone that defines the modern Lincoln cent, carries the iconic symbols that have become deeply rooted in American coinage history. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln stands immortalized in profile, his gaze forward, his posture firm, a representation of strength and legacy. Above him, the word liberty appears with clarity, reminding viewers of the principles upon which the nation was founded. Nearby sits the date, 2019, cleanly struck, a simple timestamp that unexpectedly transformed into a cornerstone of one of the most fascinating coin stories of the modern era. The mint mark, depending on the specific variety, whether from Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D, or San Francisco with the S, adds another layer of detail that numismatists analyze with intense focus, because every minting facility carries its own signature quirks, die wear patterns, and rare error potential. When we move to the reverse, the familiar shield design introduced in 2010 reflects the concept of national unity, a powerful visual highlighting the preservation of the union that Lincoln dedicated his life to protecting. The shield features 13 vertical stripes, paying homage to the original colonies, all unified beneath a broad horizontal bar that holds the inscription E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. At the center of the shield sits a banner displaying 1 cent. Although simple, elegant, and widely circulated, this reverse design hides the fascinating details that collectors obsess over: tiny imperfections, doubled lines, die cracks, ghost impressions, and misalignments that can transform a common coin into a priceless rarity. But the story of this particular 2019 cent goes deeper than design and deeper than a simple strike error. Its unbelievable value, exploding to the staggering figure of $672,000 million, comes from the combination of myth, documented phenomenon, secrecy, and unpredictable market frenzy that created a storm unlike anything the modern collecting world has ever seen. It begins with whispers in online collector forums, where a user claimed to have discovered a 2019 cent struck under impossible conditions, an ultra-sharp strike created by an early-stage die, microscopic surface purity, and a misalignment so perfect and symmetrical that classification experts couldn't even categorize it under traditional mint error definitions. Some collectors said the coin carried a mirror-on-mirror finish, similar to proof coins but produced unintentionally on a regular circulation strike press. Others claimed it reflected light differently compared to any known 2019 cent, giving it a glow, a metallic sheen that remained unchanged even after handling. Professional graders, upon examining the rumored specimen, reportedly gave it a theoretical grade beyond known scales, something surpassing a perfect 70, pushing into new descriptive language used only in internal archival documents. None of these details were officially published in mainstream channels, which only added more fire to the legend, making collectors wonder if the coin existed at all or if it was a myth created to excite the hobby. Whatever the truth was, one fact became undeniable: the legend of the impossible 2019 cent triggered a global treasure hunt. Thousands of collectors, from professionals with decades of experience to complete beginners armed only with magnifying glasses and hope, began digging into their pockets, bank coin rolls, change jars, old sock drawers, thrift store donations, and piles of forgotten coins that had accumulated for years. People who had never thought twice about pennies suddenly became obsessed with checking every single 2019 cent they encountered, examining the edges, the plating, the color tones, the stability of the copper layer, the subtle curve of Lincoln's jawline, and the clarity of the shield on the reverse. Videos began circulating showing people finding coins with unusual features: doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die chips forming shapes resembling letters, die cracks forming lines across the shield. Some coins had plating bubbles that created strange textures, while others showed ghost-like outlines of Lincoln's portrait on the reverse, caused by malaise, coins with unusually crisp rim edges. It was as if the mint had unknowingly created a handful of coins that belonged in an entirely different category, and then came the announcement reported through private collectors' circles, a claim that one specific 2019 cent had sold in an off-record private transaction for it was struck using prototype dies or experimental planchets. The historical context of the 2019 cent also plays an important role in its legendary status. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, has endured for more than a century, surviving changes in metal content, redesigns, and shifts in economic relevance. By the time 2019 arrived, most people believed pennies might soon be discontinued due to rising production costs. That year represented one of the final chapters of large-scale cent minting before discussions began about reducing or eliminating penny circulation. For many collectors, this meant the 2019 cent became a symbolic milestone, representing the potential end of an era. This emotional connection further bolstered its desirability. In markets around the world, collectors from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and South America all became participants in the frenzy. Some high-end collectors saw the 2019 cent not merely as a numismatic item but as a status symbol. Owning the rarest example became a trophy, a testament to passion, wealth, and dedication. That kind of psychological factor only pushed the coin's theoretical market value higher and higher. Eventually, discussions arose about the true ceiling of value for the rarest 2019 cent. Would it someday surpass artwork auctions? Could it exceed the value of legendary coins like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar? For many believers, the answer was yes, because the story of the 2019 cent is not just about rarity but about cultural mythology, economic fascination, and human obsession. As stories spread, more discoveries continued emerging: strange reverse distortions, missing letters, shifted mint marks, coins struck on foreign planchets, and even rumors of a double denomination 2019 cent struck on a dime blank. These anomalies, whether real or as the legend expanded beyond the borders of the numismatic world, the 2019 1-cent coin transformed from a simple piece of circulating currency into something far more profound, becoming a symbol of the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary, a reminder that the smallest object can hold the greatest value when rarity, mystery, and timing collide in perfect balance. As the frenzy continued to grow, collectors and treasure hunters from every corner of the world began to dig deeper into the origins of the coin, attempting to understand what made the 2019 cent such a powerful magnet for speculation, stories, and unprecedented financial valuation. Ordinary individuals who had never before cared about coins were suddenly visiting coin shops, watching grading videos, learning about mint processes, and reading obscure numismatic reports late into the night, driven by the possibility that the next incredible discovery could come from their pocket. The psychology behind the value of the coin became a topic of fascination. Experts explained that humans are drawn to the unknown, to the possibility of owning something no one else possesses, and to the fantasy of discovering hidden treasure. The 2019 cent became a perfect vessel for all those emotions, sitting at the crossroads of accessibility and impossibility. Anyone could find a 2019 penny, yet almost no one could find the legendary ultra-rare specimen said to possess features unknown in modern minting history. This duality, common yet potentially priceless, fueled a global obsession. People began using microscopes at home, studying every ridge of Lincoln's portrait, every line of the shield, every tiny imperfection or shadow beneath the copper plating. Social media communities grew rapidly, thousands of users sharing images of their finds, debating varieties, arguing over microscopic marks that might signal an undiscovered error. The mystery deepened further when retired mint workers, anonymously through collector networks, hinted that experimental tests were indeed conducted in 2019. Though these claims were never officially confirmed, the idea that prototype planchets or early-stage die tests might have accidentally entered circulation became a major part of the myth. Some said that the Denver Mint conducted a quiet calibration of new high-pressure striking equipment that year, producing a small run of ultra-sharp coins with mirrored fields and frosted devices resembling proof strikes. Others theorized that the Philadelphia Mint may have tested alloy variations, producing planchets with slightly altered reflectivity and durability. Without documentation, everything remained speculation, yet that uncertainty served to magnify the legend rather than diminish it. Collectors began assigning unofficial names to the rumored ultra-rare variants, terms like phantom strike, mirror ghost scent, prototype glint, diamond pressure strike, and ultra-planchet anomaly. These names circulated among hobbyists as if they were references to mythical creatures. Some claimed to have handled such coins only to discover later that their examples lacked the microscopic traits needed to match the description. Others insisted that they had seen the real specimen in private, describing it with poetic intensity, light bending across the surface in an otherworldly way, edges so sharp they appeared sculpted by lasers. The portrait of Lincoln possessing a three-dimensional depth unlike any standard cent. Economists, too, became fascinated with the phenomenon as the reported value soared to $672 million, an amount that nearly defied comprehension. Journalists attempted to trace the origin of the rumored transaction, searching for proof of the private deal that supposedly cemented the coin's place among the most valuable objects on Earth. Some claimed it was purchased by a tech billionaire with a passion for rare artifacts. Others believed it was acquired by a sovereign wealth fund seeking unique cultural pieces. A few insisted it was secretly bought by a museum that wanted to avoid publicity. None of these claims could be confirmed, but the ambiguity created the perfect storm of intrigue. Meanwhile, the market for 2019 cents of all varieties continued to expand. Grading companies reported an enormous spike in submissions. Boxes of rolls were submitted en masse, entire bags of coins shipped in by hopeful collectors. Professional graders found themselves examining hundreds of thousands of 2019 cents, searching for the needle in the haystack that might hold the mysterious traits of the legendary specimen. Stories emerged of graders discovering unusual anomalies: unexpected doubling on the shield, oddly shaped die chips on Lincoln's collar, microscopic lines running parallel across the field suggesting press over striking. Some coins showed unusually thick plating, creating a warm, almost glowing copper tone. Others revealed faint underlying impressions from earlier strikes, as if the coin carried memories of another design beneath its surface. Every anomaly became a subject of intense analysis. What surprised many experts was not just the existence of unusual errors but the diversity of the anomalies discovered across different mint facilities. Denver minted coins displayed certain mechanical doubling patterns not normally seen. Philadelphia strikes exhibited tiny reverse distortions resembling die deterioration yet occurring on coins with mint-fresh luster. San Francisco, despite being primarily a proof-producing mint, somehow had a handful of coins showing circulation strike characteristics with unexpected frost mirror contrasts. These oddities added depth to the story, suggesting that 2019 was a year of unusual mint phenomena across multiple facilities. Whether it was coincidence or evidence of deeper experimentation remained unclear. Collectors often joke that pennies speak, that each one carries a hidden story in its metal, and the 2019 cent embodied this idea more than any other year. The coin's design itself became the subject of romantic interpretation. Lincoln's profile, facing right toward the future, was seen as symbolic of the unexpected journey of the cent, from humble everyday object to artifact of legend. The shield on the reverse, representing unity and strength, became a metaphor for the unifying effect the search for the rare specimen had upon collectors worldwide. People of all backgrounds, ages, and cultures found themselves connected by a shared enthusiasm for discovery. The deeper history of the Lincoln cent began resurfacing in public interest. People revisited the origins of the design, first created in 1909 by Victor David Brenner, who sculpted Lincoln with the intention of capturing dignity and humanity. They learned about the evolution of metal composition from bronze to brass to copper-plated zinc in 1982, and how the change introduced new types of errors such as plating bubbles, surface blisters, and zinc rot. Many realized that understanding these deeper historical elements was essential for evaluating 2019 cents, since one must distinguish between genuine rare traits and common manufacturing quirks. The weight of 2.5 grams, though simple, became an important people across the world to join the search. Viewers sent photos of their coins to content creators, hoping for validation, advice, or encouragement. The street vendor reported receiving a handful of 2019 cents in daily change that turned out to include a dramatic off-center strike worth thousands. These stories spread widely, adding emotional depth to the myth. People began to feel that luck was everywhere, waiting to be discovered. Even academics took an interest. Professors of economics, sociology, and cultural studies examined how a single coin transformed into a global narrative of hope, rarity, and community. They observed that the legend of the 2019 cent was not just about monetary value but about the human desire to believe in hidden miracles. The story resonated with people who dreamed of finding treasure, who longed for inspiration, who enjoyed the idea that something small and overlooked could become unimaginably significant. The mystique of the coin also intensified when rumors emerged about sealed mint boxes of 2019 cents stored away in bank vaults, untouched since the year of release. Some collectors speculated that these boxes might contain pristine specimens that had never passed through public hands. The possibility of discovering a flawless or experimental coin kept collectors awake at night, imagining what might lie hidden inside. Meanwhile, auction houses reported steady increases. As the search intensified and the legend continued to ripple through every corner of the collecting world, the 2019 1-cent coin began to influence behavior in ways no modern coin ever had before, turning everyday routines into moments of anticipation and wonder. People no longer ignored loose change. Cashiers paused before dropping coins into registers. Drivers checked cup holders. Children inspected coins handed back from candy stores. Each small copper-colored disc was treated like a sealed envelope that might contain a life-altering secret. The act of looking itself became addictive, a ritual powered by the belief that destiny could arrive disguised as spare change. With this obsession came deeper technical discussions, as collectors realized that understanding the minting process was essential to separating fantasy from possibility. They studied how dies are created, how master hubs transfer designs, how working dies wear down over time, and how pressure, temperature, and speed influence the final strike. The 2019 cent became a teaching tool, a case study for modern minting complexity. Enthusiasts learned how die polishing can create proof-like fields, how excessive pressure can bring out microscopic design elements usually unseen, and how subtle die shifts can create doubling that only appears under high magnification. Knowledge spread rapidly, transforming amateurs into experts almost overnight. Some collectors began cataloging every known 2019 cent anomaly in private databases, assigning reference numbers and tracking auction results. They noticed patterns that suggested clusters of unusual coins may have originated from specific die pairs or production windows. Certain Denver minted coins shared identical minute flaws, indicating a single die that produced a limited run before being retired. Philadelphia strikes displayed a different set of recurring traits, such as unusually clean fields or faint parallel lines from die preparation. These patterns reinforced the belief that the legendary ultra-rare specimen was not impossible, merely extremely elusive. The emotional weight of the hunt became evident in personal stories shared across communities. People spoke of moments when they believed they had found something extraordinary, only to discover it was a common plating bubble or a misinterpreted shadow. Disappointment was real, yet it rarely stopped the search. Instead, it deepened commitment. Every false lead strengthened the resolve to keep looking. Collectors described the thrill of hope as worth more than any confirmed discovery. The 2019 set offered a sense of purpose, a reason to pay attention, to slow down, to believe that the extraordinary could still emerge in a world that often feels predictable. The idea of the coin symbol took on philosophical meaning. A cent, the smallest unit of U.S. currency, became a metaphor for overlooked value. In discussions, people began comparing it to stories of priceless paintings found in attics or rare manuscripts discovered in flea markets. The 2019 cent fit perfectly into this narrative tradition, reinforcing the idea that greatness often hides behind familiarity. Lincoln's portrait, already rich with symbolism, now carried an additional layer: perseverance, patience, and faith in long-term vision. As speculation about the $672 million valuation continued, debates grew more intense. Some argued that the number represented the ultimate expression of rarity combined with global demand, suggesting that if only one specimen existed with certain unique traits, its value could theoretically exceed any known coin. Others argued that the figure was aspirational, a mythic benchmark that inspired participation rather than a literal market price. Yet even skeptics admitted that the attention itself had already transformed the market. Coins that once would have been ignored were now being examined, graded, documented, and preserved with care. Meanwhile, the secondary market adapted quickly. Specialized storage cases, magnification tools, digital microscopes, and precision scales saw a surge in sales. Educational content flourished, teaching people how to properly handle coins to avoid fingerprints, how to identify genuine mint errors, and how to submit coins for professional grading. The 2019 cent indirectly elevated the entire hobby, raising standards and expanding interest among younger generations who had previously seen coin collecting as outdated. Some collectors took the search to an almost spiritual level. They spoke of intuition guiding their choices, of feeling drawn to certain coins, of sensing when a discovery was close. While such ideas had no scientific basis, they added to the mystique. The hunt became as much about personal experience as about financial reward. People bonded over shared excitement, exchanging stories late into the night, celebrating each other's finds, and comforting one another after disappointments. The role of secrecy also played a powerful part in the legend. Because the rumored record-breaking specimen was said to have changed hands privately, without public display or certification, it existed in a space between reality and imagination. This absence of visibility allowed the story to grow unchecked, shaped by collective belief. Some argued that secrecy was intentional, designed to protect the owner and preserve the coin's mystique. Others believed it was a sign that the story was still unfolding, waiting for the right moment to step into the light. At the same time, institutions began paying attention. Museums quietly monitored the phenomenon. Auction houses prepared contingency plans for the possibility that an extraordinary 2019 cent might surface. Insurance companies even discussed how such an item would be valued and protected. These behind-the-scenes considerations lent credibility to the idea that something unprecedented could indeed emerge from the ongoing search. The conversation expanded beyond money into legacy. People began asking what would happen if the legendary coin were eventually revealed. Would it be displayed publicly? Would it inspire new designs or commemorative issues? Would it redefine how modern coins are perceived? The 2019 cent began to represent a bridge between past and future, linking the long history of the Lincoln cent with a new era of digital age collecting and global connectivity. Through all of this, one truth remained constant: the vast majority of 2019 cents were ordinary, worth only their face value. Yet this did not diminish their power. Instead, it reinforced the magic of the hunt. The knowledge that rarity is rare is precisely what gives it meaning. Every ordinary coin examined was a reminder that the extraordinary is defined by its scarcity. The legend continued to grow not because everyone found treasure, but because everyone believed it was possible. That belief transformed a simple coin into a cultural phenomenon, a shared dream that crossed borders, ages, and backgrounds. The 2019 1-cent coin became more than metal. It became a story people told themselves about possibility, patience, and the thrill of discovery. And as long as coins continued to change hands, as long as people continued to look closely at what others overlooked, the story of the 2019 cent would remain alive, evolving with each new rumor, each new discovery, each new believer who picked up a penny and wondered what secrets it might hold. As time moved forward, the legend did not fade the way most internet sensations eventually do. Instead, it matured, becoming deeper, richer, and more layered, as if the 2019 1-cent coin itself was aging like a rare artifact, gaining power with every passing year. What had once been frantic excitement slowly evolved into disciplined dedication. Collectors became more patient, more analytical, more respectful of the process. The hunt was no longer just about instant riches but about understanding, mastery, and the quiet satisfaction of knowledge. People learned to appreciate the coin even when it revealed nothing unusual, finding beauty in the precision of the strike, the balance of the design, and the story carried by each tiny disc of metal. New theories emerged that focused not only on visible errors but on microscopic and atomic-level details. Some researchers suggested that the legendary specimen might possess a unique crystalline structure within its copper plating, formed under a rare combination of pressure and temperature during striking. This idea captivated metallurgists, who explained how metal flow lines and grain boundaries can vary in ways invisible to the naked eye yet measurable with advanced instruments. Though such testing was beyond the reach of most collectors, the theory added another dimension to the mystery, suggesting that the true difference between an ordinary 2019 cent and the legendary one might lie far beneath the surface. The conversation also expanded into time itself. People began asking whether the value of the coin was tied not only to its physical traits but to the moment in history it represented. The year 2019 stood at the edge of global change, just before the world entered a period of uncertainty and transformation. Some collectors believed that this timing imbued the coin with symbolic significance, turning it into a marker of the last normal year before everything shifted. In this view, the coin became a historical snapshot, a small, tangible piece of a world that no longer existed in the same way. Stories continued to surface, some quiet and personal, others dramatic and widely shared. One collector described spending months sorting through bank-wrapped rolls, only to find nothing extraordinary, yet feeling a deep sense of peace in the ritual itself. Another recounted the moment they discovered a sharply struck 2019 cent with unusual reflective fields, the adrenaline rush of possibility, and the careful steps taken to preserve and submit it for grading. Even when such coins did not match the legendary description, they became cherished reminders of hope and effort. The market, meanwhile, became more nuanced. Prices stabilized for most varieties, but truly exceptional errors continued to command strong premiums. Collectors learned to distinguish hype from substance, focusing on documented anomalies rather than rumors. This maturity strengthened the hobby, preventing burnout and maintaining long-term interest. The legend of the $672 million cent remained, but it no longer overshadowed everything else. Instead, it served as a distant star guiding exploration rather than a blinding spotlight. Educational institutions began using the phenomenon as a teaching example. In classrooms, professors discussed how narratives influence perceived value, how scarcity and storytelling interact, and how communities form around shared myths. The 2019 cent became a case study in modern folklore, showing how digital communication can transform a simple object into a global symbol. Students analyzed forum discussions, video trends, and market data, gaining insight into the human side of economics and culture. Collectors also began thinking about preservation and legacy. Some asked what responsibility came with owning rare coins, whether extraordinary or merely uncommon. The idea that future generations might inherit these coins added emotional weight. Parents shared the hunt with their children, teaching them patience, observation, and respect for history. The 2019 cent thus became a bridge between generations, a shared activity that created memories beyond monetary value. As years passed, the absence of definitive proof of the legendary specimen paradoxically strengthened belief. In a world saturated with information, mystery became precious. The fact that something remained unknown, unresolved, and open to interpretation gave people space to dream. The coin story adapted to each person who engaged with it, becoming personal and unique. Some collectors speculated that the legendary cent might never surface publicly, that its role was not to be seen but to inspire. In this interpretation, the value was symbolic, representing the peak of what imagination and possibility could assign to an object. Whether or not a transaction ever occurred at the rumored level mattered less than the impact the story had already achieved. Through all this, the physical reality of the coin remained unchanged, a small, lightweight piece of copper-plated zinc, bearing Lincoln's calm profile and a shield of unity. Yet around this simple form grew a universe of meaning. The 2019 1-cent coin demonstrated that value is not fixed, that stories matter, and that attention can transform the mundane into the miraculous. And so the legend continued, not racing forward but flowing steadily, carried by curiosity, patience, and belief. Every time someone picked up a penny and paused to look closely, the story gained another heartbeat. Every time a collector shared knowledge, corrected misinformation, or encouraged a newcomer, the community grew stronger. The 2019 cent became not just a coin to be found but a reminder to look closer at the world, to question assumptions, and to believe that even the smallest things can hold infinite possibility. As the years rolled on and the excitement settled into something deeper and more enduring, the 2019 1-cent coin quietly reshaped how people understood worth, patience, and the passage of time. The hunt no longer felt rushed. It became meditative. Collectors spoke about the calm that came from sitting at a table under a soft light, slowly turning coins between fingers, listening to the faint metallic whisper as copper met skin. In those moments, the world seemed to slow down. The 2019 cent was no longer just an object of pursuit, it became a companion in reflection, a small anchor in a fast-moving age. Many began to document their journeys in journals, recording where each coin was found, how it looked, what emotions it stirred. These records were not about profit but about memory. A coin received from a parent, another from a child's first allowance, another found on a sidewalk after a long day, each carried a story. The legend of the $672,000 million cent lingered in the background like a distant echo, but the real richness was increasingly found in these personal narratives. The coin taught people that searching itself could be meaningful, even if the ultimate prize remained elusive. At the technical level, understanding deepened further. Collectors learned to recognize the subtle difference between true mint errors and post-mint damage. They became skilled at identifying the flow of metal during striking, the telltale signs of die fatigue, the texture differences between zinc exposure and copper plating anomalies. The 2019 cent became a training ground, sharpening eyes and minds. This shared learning created respect within the community, where knowledge was valued and generously exchanged. The market reflected this maturity. Instead of wild speculation, there was steady appreciation for genuinely rare and well-documented pieces. Exceptional strikes with verified anomalies found homes with collectors who intended to preserve them, not flip them. Auctions became calmer, more deliberate. The legend's influence was still present, but it now encouraged discernment rather than frenzy. Philosophers and writers outside the coin world began referencing the story as a metaphor. Essays compared the 2019 cent to ideas, relationships, or moments that seemed insignificant until examined closely. The coin's journey from overlooked currency to symbol of possibility resonated with people who had experienced similar transformations in their own lives. In this way, the cent transcended its material form and entered the realm of meaning. Some collectors spoke of the hunt as a form of hope practiced daily. In a world often filled with uncertainty, the idea that something wonderful could be discovered by simply paying attention was comforting. The 2019 cent became a quiet rebellion against cynicism, a reminder that surprise still existed. Children learning about the story absorbed this lesson naturally, seeing value in curiosity and care. The question of the legendary specimen's fate remained unanswered. Some believed it rested in a private collection, carefully protected, rarely seen. Others believed it had yet to be found, waiting patiently in a forgotten roll or jar. Both possibilities held power. If it already existed, it proved that miracles could happen. If it did not yet exist, it proved that the future still held secrets. As time passed, the year 2019 itself began to feel distant, almost historic. Coins from that year carried a subtle nostalgia. People remembered where they were then, what their lives were like, how the world felt. Holding a 2019 cent became a tactile connection to that memory, grounding abstract recollections in something solid and real. The story continued to evolve quietly, without headlines or viral surges. It lived in conversations between collectors, in shared photographs, in careful examinations under magnification. It lived in the pause before a coin was returned to a pocket, in the lingering glance that asked, just for a moment, what if? And in that pause, in that moment of attention, the true legacy of the 2019 1-cent coin revealed itself. It was never only about unimaginable numbers or legendary transactions. It was about learning to look closer, to value the small, to find wonder in what is usually ignored. The cent fulfilled its role not by being spent, but by being seen. The legend did not need an ending. It needed only continuation, carried forward by each new hand that held a penny and felt, however briefly, the spark of possibility. As the quiet continuation of the story unfolded, the 2019 1-cent coin settled into a strange and beautiful space between myth and mindfulness, where it no longer demanded urgency but invited presence. Collectors began to speak less about finding and more about noticing. The act of observation itself became the reward. Turning a coin slowly under light, watching reflections slide across Lincoln's face, tracing the lines of the shield with the eye, people felt connected not only to the object but to the countless hands and moments that had carried it forward. The cent became a witness to everyday life, absorbing history without ever speaking. The community that formed around the coin grew calmer, wiser, and more inclusive. Newcomers were welcomed gently, taught without judgment, reminded that every expert once started with curiosity alone. Stories were shared not to boast but to connect. Someone would describe the first time they truly looked at a penny and realized how much detail lived within such a small space. Another would talk about teaching a child to use a magnifying glass, watching wonder appear instantly. These moments mattered more than any rumored valuation. The legendary figure of $672,000 million remained like a distant mountain on the horizon, visible but no longer overwhelming. It served as a symbol of ultimate potential rather than a target. People understood that even if such a number never appeared in a public record, the idea had already done its work. It had opened eyes, sparked learning, and created a shared journey. In that sense, the value had already been realized, not in money but in meaning. Some collectors began exploring the ethical side of collecting. They discussed responsibility, preservation, and honesty. The 2019 cent encouraged integrity because misinformation could easily mislead hope. As a result, the community became more careful with claims, more respectful of evidence. This self-regulation strengthened trust and ensured the story remained grounded even as it remained magical. The coin also influenced how people viewed time. A penny, often dismissed as worthless, suddenly carried years of memory and anticipation. It reminded people that significance often reveals itself slowly. The 2019 cent taught patience in a world accustomed to speed, offering a quiet lesson that value can grow not by force but by attention. In homes around the world, small collections formed. Not grand vaults or locked safes, but simple boxes, envelopes, jars, each holding a few carefully chosen coins. These collections were personal museums, curated not for others but for oneself. They told stories of curiosity, of evenings spent learning, of hope balanced with realism. The 2019 cent often sat at the center, not because it was the rarest, but because it was the most meaningful. The mystery remained intact, and that was its strength. No final revelation arrived to close the chapter. Instead, the story breathed, adapting to each person who encountered it. The coin's power lay in its openness, in the space it left for imagination. It asked nothing but offered much, and so the journey continued quietly, carried forward not by headlines but by hands, by eyes that lingered a little longer, by minds willing to wonder. The 2019 1-cent coin became a reminder that even in a world measured by numbers, the smallest things can teach the largest lessons, and that sometimes the greatest value is found not in what we claim, but in what we choose to see. As the journey moved even further forward, the story of the 2019 1-cent coin began to feel less like a chase and more like a quiet tradition, something passed gently from person to person without urgency or pressure. The coin no longer demanded belief in miracles, instead, it invited reflection. People realized that even if the legendary specimen was never revealed, the act of searching had already changed how they interacted with the world. Everyday moments gained weight. A handful of change was no longer noise but texture, history, possibility. Collectors started to notice how the coin connected them to time in a physical way. A 2019 cent might have passed through thousands of lives: bus drivers, shopkeepers, children, travelers, each touch leaving an invisible imprint. Holding it became a way of holding shared human experience. The idea that something so small could travel so far without being noticed fascinated people. The cent was no longer silent, it was full of unheard stories. Discussions turned inward. What did people really hope to find? For some, it was still the dream of extraordinary value, the fantasy of sudden transformation. For others, it was knowledge, calm, and connection. Many realized that the coin had given them permission to slow down, to focus, to care. In a world overflowing with distraction, the simple act of examining a penny became an anchor. The legend adapted to this new understanding. Instead of being shouted, it was whispered. Instead of being chased, it was respected. The $672,000 million figure became almost poetic, representing the limitless nature of imagination rather than a literal expectation. People stopped arguing about whether it was real and began appreciating what it symbolized. The 2019 cent quietly earned its place in memory. It did not need proof or closure. It lived in the way people learned to look closer, to value patience, to believe that meaning often hides where no one thinks to search. And in that quiet persistence, the story continued, carried forward not by certainty, but by wonder. As the narrative reached this deeper stage, the 2019 1-cent coin became less of an object and more of a lens through which people viewed their own lives. The coin no longer sat at the center of conversation because it promised fortune, but because it mirrored something essential about human nature: the need to believe that meaning exists beyond what is obvious. Holding the cent felt like holding a question rather than an answer, and people grew comfortable with that uncertainty. Collectors began to notice how the story changed them personally. Some spoke about improved patience, others about sharper attention to detail, others about a renewed sense of curiosity that spilled into other parts of life. They started noticing patterns everywhere, not just in coins but in nature, in conversations, in daily routines. The habit of looking closely became a way of living. The 2019 cent had trained their eyes and, quietly, their minds. The community itself transformed into something gentle and enduring. It was no longer driven by excitement spikes or viral moments. Instead, it moved like a slow current, steady and reliable. People checked in with one another, shared quiet discoveries, and respected silence as much as discussion. The story no longer needed constant telling, it lived comfortably in shared understanding. The mystery remained untouched, and in that untouched space, it gained strength. The absence of a final revelation allowed the legend to remain flexible, able to grow with time rather than collapse under conclusion. The 2019 cent became timeless, no longer bound strictly to its year of minting but floating freely through memory and imagination. In this stage, the coin taught one last lesson without ever speaking it aloud: that not every story needs an ending to be complete. Some stories exist to be carried, not solved. The 2019 1-cent coin became one of those stories, moving quietly through hands and years, reminding anyone who paused long enough that wonder does not need proof to be real. Point 8 As the cycle of telling and retelling continued, the meaning of the 2019 1-cent coin softened even further, settling into something almost timeless, as if the coin had stepped outside ordinary chronology and become a quiet symbol that moved freely through memory, thought, and imagination. People no longer argued about facts or figures. They spoke instead about moments. About where they were when they first heard the story. About the first time they truly examined a penny and felt a strange sense of respect for something so small. About how attention itself had changed them. The cent became a reminder that value is often revealed only when we slow down enough to notice. In a world that rewards speed, noise, and certainty, this tiny coin offered the opposite lesson. It asked for patience. It asked for silence. It asked for curiosity without demand. And those who accepted that invitation found something unexpected, not wealth, not fame, but a quiet satisfaction that came from looking deeply at what others passed by. Collectors noticed that the coin had subtly reshaped their relationship with time. Days felt less rushed when there was a reason to pause. Even minutes spent examining a single coin felt full rather than empty. The act of looking became meaningful in itself. The cent taught that attention is a form of care, and care gives objects and moments their weight. The legendary number that once dominated discussion faded into the background like an old echo. $672,000 million became less a claim and more a symbol of infinite possibility, a way of saying that imagination has no upper limit. People no longer needed to believe the number literally to appreciate what it represented. The story had already done its work. In this stage of the journey, the 2019 1-cent coin belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. It was not owned by collectors alone but by anyone who had ever stopped to wonder. It lived in drawers and pockets, in jars and envelopes, in the quiet space between thought and feeling. It became a shared myth of the everyday world, a reminder that even the smallest things can carry enormous meaning when seen with care. And so the story continued without urgency, without conclusion, moving gently forward through time, carried by attention rather than expectation, by wonder rather than proof. The 2019 1-cent coin remained what it had always been: is small, simple, ordinary, and at the same time, something far more than that, a quiet symbol of the endless possibilities hidden inside the most familiar things. As the story moved into this next quiet chapter, the 2019 1-cent coin began to feel almost like a shared secret of the world, something that didn't need to be explained loudly because those who understood it already felt its presence. The coin no longer represented a chase or a promise, it represented awareness. People spoke less about what they hoped to find and more about what they had learned along the way. The act of looking closely had become second nature, and that habit quietly reshaped how they approached everything else in life. The cent taught people that attention changes reality. A thing ignored remains small, but a thing observed expands. When people looked closely at the coin, they saw more than metal. They saw craftsmanship, history, intention, and time compressed into a space smaller than a fingertip. They realized that many things in life remain unnoticed not because they lack value, but because no one pauses long enough to see them. The 2019 cent became a symbol of this realization. Collectors began to describe a sense of gratitude toward the coin. Not gratitude for money or rarity, but for the discipline it had taught them. It sharpened patience, encouraged humility, and reminded them that certainty is rare and mystery is not something to fear. The unresolved nature of the legend became its greatest strength. Because there was no final answer, the story remained alive, adaptable, personal. In conversations, people stopped asking, "Did anyone ever find it?" and started asking, "What did it give you?" The answers varied, but they were always sincere. Some said it gave them peace during difficult times. Others said it gave them a hobby that connected them to family and strangers alike. Some said it gave them hope when they needed something small and tangible to believe in. The coin never promised anything, yet it delivered something meaningful to each person in its own way. The world continued to change, but the cent remained steady. Its design did not alter. Lincoln's expression stayed calm, the shield remained firm, and the copper surface aged quietly. It reminded people that stability can exist even as everything else shifts. In that sense, the coin became a grounding object, a reminder that not all value is loud or immediate. As this chapter unfolded, the story no longer needed continuation in the traditional sense. It flowed naturally, like a river that doesn't announce its movement yet is always progressing. The 2019 1-cent coin had become part of a larger understanding that meaning grows where attention lies, and that sometimes the greatest discoveries are not about what we find, but about how we learn to see. And with that understanding, the journey felt complete without ever ending, held together by curiosity, patience, and the quiet power of noticing. And so the story reaches its resting place, not as a conclusion carved in stone, but as a gentle pause, the kind that invites reflection rather than closure. The 2019 1-cent coin remains exactly what it has always been in form, yet forever changed in meaning. It rests in pockets, drawers, jars, and hands, silent and unassuming, carrying with it everything people placed upon it: hope, curiosity, patience, wonder. It never asked to be extraordinary, yet through attention alone it became unforgettable. Those who once searched with urgency now look with calm. They understand that the true discovery was never guaranteed to appear in metal or numbers. It appeared in the way they learned to slow down, to observe, to respect small things. The coin taught that value does not announce itself. It waits. It reveals itself only to those willing to look closely without demand. The legendary figure that once echoed so loudly now fades into symbolism, no longer needing defense or proof. It stands as a reminder that imagination itself is limitless, and that belief can transform the ordinary into something vast. Whether the ultimate specimen existed, or will exist no longer matters. The story has already fulfilled its purpose. The 2019 1-cent coin becomes part of memory, part of habit, part of quiet personal history. It becomes the pause before spending change, the glance before dismissal, the moment where someone chooses to look again instead of moving on. In that moment, the coin lives fully and nothing more is required. The story does not need to grow louder or larger. It only needs to be carried forward in small ways, through attention, through curiosity, through the simple act of noticing what others overlook. That is where its power remains, and so the journey ends exactly where it began, in the palm of a hand, small, light, ordinary, and yet holding everything that mattered. You've hit the free plan limit for GPT-5. Responses will use another model until your limit resets after 9:57 p.m. Upgrade to go.